Hello, everyone. Welcome. All right, it is 6:30, so we're going to get started on time. So welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Summer of Access. Today's presenter, Dr. Jen Olette, is going to enlighten us. I'm so excited for your presentation for her topic tonight, WCAG. Wait, Jen, you say your topic again, real quick.
The noise in the channel, why WCAG matters for meaningful learning.
Thank you. I didn't want to get it wrong.
Oh, no
So
worries.
welcome everyone. This is brought to you by Latoile Education and the Accessibility L&D community. We are in a Zoom meeting, so please stay muted unless speaking. Use the chat or raise hand feature. Recordings will be shared in the Accessibility L&D Slack community. We have live captions and transcripts available to you throughout the session, as well as a transcript and captions with the recording once it's posted. Just to update you very quickly, we still have two more sessions following this in July, and I'll make sure to drop those into the chat so that you can join us for those. And also, please say hello in the chat as well. I see hello, Andrea. Hello, Kathleen. So let us know where you're calling in from. And let's get started. Let me tell you about our presenter today. Dr. Jennifer is an experienced higher education professional with over 16 years in teaching, research, and academic leadership. She's previously served as a tenured associate professor and director of the MA in Professional Communication at William Patterson University, specializing in communication in both personal and professional context. Her work emphasizes inclusive learner-centered design. She is currently pursuing a graduate certificate in learning design and technologies at Arizona State University. Her focus is on instructional design practices that support equitable access to learning for diverse student populations. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jen to the stage. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Nicole. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just to get us started. So give me one moment, please. Oh, go Sun Devils. I agree. Okay. Can you see my slides all right? Awesome. Wonderful. Okay. So thank you for that kind introduction, Nicole. I'm so excited to be here tonight with you all to talk a little bit about communication, WCAG, accessibility, all those wonderful things wrapped up into one. If you have any questions or comments as I'm going through, feel free to write them in the chat, raise your hand, any of the things that Nicole mentioned. And I will try my best to manage the presentation and also respond to any questions, comments that you might have as we get rolling. So as Nicole said, I have 16 years of experience in higher ed as a communication professor, which I've really enjoyed quite a bit. So I've taught quite a variety of different courses in personal and professional communication, pretty much training people on how to get their messages across clearly. During that time, I really started getting interested in accessibility, mainly because of my students and the wide variety of needs and interests that they had as they came to my different courses, particularly within online accessibility. So as I went through that journey, I was really excited in the spring to join Nicole's Making Online Content Accessible for All cohort. So I know there's one coming up soon. So if you are in that cohort, I'm really excited for you because I learned a ton. I know you'll learn new things, add on to the community. If you haven't had a chance yet to look at the wide variety of different things that Nicole offers, please do so because, as I said, I can't say enough good things about it. So as I was going through that cohort, though, one thing that I noticed is, of course, my brain is always going to start with things from a communication perspective. So as I was going through, I kept thinking about accessibility and how it's intertwined with communication and how really the two of them have an interplay with each other. And so that's part of the reason why tonight I'm so excited to finally share this with others and also to have some interactive discussion as well. Okay. So during tonight's presentation, as I said, I have about 15 to 20 minutes of content that I'll go through. There may be times where I ask for your help or your feedback or thoughts that I'll ask you to write in the chat. And then at the end, we have a breakout room as well. So a few things to keep in mind. Tonight, we're going to talk about one of many different communication models, and that's the Shannon-Weaver model of communication. It is not necessarily my favorite model of communication. There's probably hundreds, if not more at this point, but it is the earliest model that most of the communication theory and communication science started with. So that's why I'm bringing it tonight. From there, we'll also look at two different examples of WCAG guidelines, 1.1.1 and 1.4.1. So I have some information about that. And then finally, at the end, that's that group activity where I'm going to ask you to bring it full circle and think a little bit about how the model that I described tonight has some interplay with WCAG principles. So that's kind of where we're headed. To get us started, though, I have a little scenario for you that I'm going to ask you to imagine. Some of the details of this scenario may be something that you've encountered before, or maybe this is all brand new. But for now, I'd like you to think that you are a learning designer at a global nonprofit developing a self-paced training for new volunteers. One of your slides in this self-paced training features a visual progress map to show how learners will move through the training. The map uses arrows, icons, color-coded circles, a whole bunch of things going on that indicate completed and pending sections. So for example, when it shows up as green, that should indicate that the learner's completed it. Red, it means it's still pending. There's no accompanying text description, and some color combinations have low contrast. You raise a concern about the accessibility of the map, but the project lead responds, "Oh, we want the slides to feel clean and modern. We already explained the content on a previous slide. I really don't think we need to describe the map again. It's just a visual summary." So I'm going to put 2 minutes on my little stop clock over here. I'd like you to write down or at least process any initial reactions that you have about this scenario. It could be any emotions that come up as you're going through this. It could be any thoughts, hopefully positive thoughts. It could be anything. So you don't have to necessarily share them in the chat yet, but just to take some notes for yourself now, because we will revisit this later in that breakout session. So I'll go ahead and put my 2-minute clock up here, and I'm going to read your comments or see what pops up in the chat as we go through. So 2 minutes to process this one, please. Okay, so on my side, my little alarm just went off. So hopefully you had some time to think through this brief scenario. And I saw some great comments that I can't wait to touch on later as well. So yes, I did give you a hot mess of a WCAG issue from the start. I did that on purpose. So we'll revisit some of the challenges that are contained with this later on. Okay, so moving on to our next slide. I have just a teeny bit of WCAG info in case WCAG is something that is new for you. I've hyperlinked the guidelines for 2.2 up here. So if that's helpful to follow along as you're going through and you want some additional information about what some of these numbers mean, like 1.1.1 or 1.4.1, which are the two I'm going to focus on tonight, feel free to use that as well. But if you're new to WCAG, WCAG does a lot of great things for accessibility. Mainly, it's a set of guidelines that help us to make web content more accessible for all. And across WCAG, they're typically described using the acronym POUR. So it's perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And while the scenario that I gave you tonight could fall or be extended into other areas, I'm going to play predominantly in the perceivable category tonight. So more on what that means later on. One other plug that I have for you tonight is the Your UDL PAL. So Universal Design for Learning. There's an AI that's set up that's particularly programmed for accessibility concerns. So if you're running through WCAG and you're hitting a wall or you just have some questions, I found it to be a really helpful resource. One of the things I did as I was prepping this presentation is I ran it through and said, why do we care about WCAG? And so your UDL PAL came up with a few different reasons for why WCAG is helpful. So one, it promotes equity and inclusion. It also supports universal design for learning. It's the standard for accessibility compliance. It's practical and improves the experience for everyone. So these are just a few of the many reasons why WCAG is helpful. Okay. So the big question that we have now that I've given my brief content overview of what WCAG is what does it really mean to be perceivable? So according to WCAG, web content must be presented in a way that all users can perceive it through their senses. And so I mentioned that as we go ahead and look at 1.1.1 and 1.4.1. So let's go ahead and turn to that as well. Okay, so finally, 1.1.1. This has to do with text alternatives. So whenever there's information that's provided, there should be alternative text for images and non-text content. It helps a wide variety of people, including those who can't see or hear the content. It also has a wide variety of applicability when we're looking at other users as well who may find that information to be helpful as they're going through your web content. So in the scenario that I provided, there's, again, as people pointed out, a wide variety of issues, particularly with the visual map, mainly because it doesn't meet the text alternative. There's nothing there. It's just a whole bunch of colors that don't have any alternative text with them. Another common problem when we look at things like online quizzes for training, people sometimes will add a checkbox that will indicate submission, but not necessarily provide alternative text to indicate that that's exactly what that checkbox means. Okay, in 1.4.1, it's slightly different. This time around, we're looking at distinguishable, particularly in color contrast. So there's a large suggestion in 1.4.1 that we don't rely on color alone to convey meaning, mainly for wide variety of users. So individuals who have color blindness, who are using screen readers, have low vision, all may have 1.4.1 considerations in addition to cognitive load. So the more that you can make your content distinguishable, the easier it will be to process. So again, you can see off to the side, as many people have pointed out so far, having the color-coded circles isn't necessarily going to be as helpful as it could for your users, and because it violates 1.4.1. Okay. So now that we've looked at WCAG a little bit, let's now turn to the other side of the coin for tonight, which is communication. So the question I have for you all now is, how does communication help us to better understand perceivable problems now that we know what perceivable problems are along the WCAG guidelines? And so one thing I thought that might be helpful is to give you all a definition of what communication is. So it's the process of conveying information, ideas, or feelings through a shared system of symbols, signs, or behaviors. So tonight I'll be using both verbal and nonverbal communication, mainly because that will show up quite a few times when we're looking through online training platforms or online learning experiences. It's not one or the other. Most of the time, there's a wide variety of communication that's being transmitted. Okay. So the model, as I mentioned, that I'm relying on this evening is the Shannon-Weaver model of communication. It was originally developed in 1948 as a telecommunication model to talk about how messages were transmitted using the telephone. Over time, social scientists developed that into a model of how humans communicate, which you can imagine there are some challenges because humans and technology are very different. But for tonight, we're going to start with that. You may have also heard of Berlow's SMCR model. It's very similar to this, but they are slightly different. So the main idea in the Shannon-Weaver model is a sender begins with a message that is then encoded through a channel before it's decoded for the receiver, and occasionally you can have some noise in the channel as well. So I know that's a lot of jargon. On my next slide, though, I have some information about what each particular item actually means. So for example, the sender, of course, is the person who is sharing the message. Encoding is the act of using verbal or nonverbal symbols to convey meaning. So you may start with a message in your head. Encoding is the process of putting those symbols together through speech or symbol systems. It could be a wide variety of things. Channel is the medium or method of transmitting a message. So for example, right now we're going through a web channel. It could be that we're talking face-to-face. Channel does matter though when we're looking at how messages are transmitted and shared. Noise can sometimes interrupt this process. So noise can be physical, physiological, psychological, or semantic. There's a wide variety of different types of noise. Sometimes it's the receiver could have previous biases or assumptions where they're not actually ready to hear the message that the person's trying to share with them. Or it could be something as simple as, we have a bad connection, I simply can't hear you. On the other side of that, the receiver then hopefully gets through the decoding process where they assign meaning to whatever's being transmitted and then receive the message. That's what the theory says anyway. Okay. So thinking back to our very beginning slide where we're designing some type of learning experience. So let's say that a learning designer is going ahead and putting together a welcome video in which they simply want to say, "Hi, I'm Jen, welcome to the class," right? Very simple message, or should be simple. So as the sender, I'm thinking through this. I'm starting to create my PowerPoint or short video, whatever channel I want to use. Then I share it online and hopefully my receiver gets it. Well, the one challenge, as you could probably tell from tonight's title of the presentation, is when we think about things not being accessible, such as the perceivable category in WCAG or 1.1.1 or 1.4.1, that is a whole bunch of noise, right? So the sender may have the best intention possible, but if they aren't communicating in a way that actually has the receiver's needs in mind, or the sender may have specific needs that they aren't communicating frequently or appropriately, then this whole model falls apart. So the summary slide, really what I'd like you to take from this, the take-home message is if users can't perceive the sender's message as being shared, if it's or if it's disrupted, then we've kind of failed across the board. So one of the reasons why I wanted to share this with you tonight is WCAG guidelines are important for a wide variety of reasons beyond what the AI had shared with you earlier. I also wanted to share this mainly because as you're going through as a learning designer, an educator, consultant, whatever role you're in, you may run into some people who sit there and want to argue with you going, doesn't that just take up a lot more time? Why do we have to do this, right? And so this perspective may help you, I'm hoping, add a little bit of an extra reasoning behind why WCAG guidelines are so helpful. Because at a bare minimum, communication is not functioning if we aren't making things accessible for all. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to give you some time to chat with some other people who have joined tonight. Thinking back to that very beginning slide where I asked you to take the 2 minutes to think through some things. And in a group, I'm going to give you, let's see, about 10 minutes to chat together. I'll bounce around from room to room. And what I'd like you to consider is how you would respond to this manager now that we've gone through WCAG guidelines specifically and a brief overview of an intro communication theory. So in your group, it's up to you whether you want to collectively do this together or individually. Clearly and concisely explain why transcripts and color contrast matter in terms of access and inclusion. The main tone of your very brief email should be collaborative, respectful, but one that also invites the person who's part of the learning design team to better understand why it's so helpful and important to have WCAG guidelines as part of it. So I'll go ahead and give you 10 minutes. In a moment, you should have something pop up that invites you to join a room. So I just got it, so feel free to go ahead.